Welcome everybody to Spirituality Adventures. This is a non-judgmental place to explore spirituality, and we're so glad you're here. This is a viewer and listener supported podcast, so we greatly appreciate your support. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, share, and subscribe to any of the social media content platforms that you're using. And then if you go to our website, spiritualityadventures.com, you can make a one-time donation, or with a monthly subscription, you'll gain access to our bonus content. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome everybody to Spirituality Adventures. We're so glad to have you with us today. And we have a special guest today, Faron Meek. Faron is the owner of FM Music down in North Kansas City, Missouri. And thanks, Faron, for joining Spirituality Adventures.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking me to be on.
Tell us, I like to start with background, kind of tell us where you were born, where you grew up.
I'm from Trenton, Missouri. It's about an hour and 45 minutes from here, up in the middle of north central Missouri. Town of a little over 6,000. Lived there from being born in the local hospital up until I was 26. Went to school there, went to the local junior college, got my degree from there, my AA degree, and then transferred to, at the time it was Northeast Missouri State, now Truman State. Mm-hmm. Received my degree in business administration from there, and then decided I really wasn't ready to go out in the working world, so I moved back home, and my parents with my aunt and uncle owned a gas station that I pretty much grew up in working. My uncle was ready to retire. My dad was not. He was the younger one of the brothers. And I went back with the knowledge that I'd be there until my dad decided to retire. I committed that I would take over for my uncle and work with my dad. And that was about a 4.5 year period. And my parents talked me out of taking over the business because small towns, not a good thing.
Is this like an independent owned gas station?
My dad had worked there since he was 21. He retired at 68. He had owned it. He bought it a year after I was born. So he bought it in 62, but he had worked there. That was where he worked. And that was his passion. It was a full service gas station. Most of the years was a Texaco gas station.
Yeah.
Full service. So you check the air, you wash the windshield, you check the oil.
Right.
You know, you knew all your customers by name.
So fascinating.
In a small town.
Yeah.
It was, we handled lawn boy lawnmowers.
Like Mayberry.
Oh, it was. He was a convenience store before there were convenience stores.
Yeah. Interesting.
And it was just as a young kid, you know, I was 5 years old, a little kid, and he'd have me out, and some 60, 70-year-old lady would come in looking for a lawnmower, and he'd pull me out and show I'd be able to start a lawn boy lawnmower first pull. And so, he could convince an older lady that, they could start it if a little 5-year-old could start it. So just something that I grew up in. Don't know if I'd say I enjoyed it. I guess if I enjoyed it, I'd still be doing it. But as with small towns, my parents saw what was happening. It wasn't the same as it had been in the past, and they encouraged me not to continue with the business, so I sold it off, and I moved to Kansas City, and been in retail ever since. Passion was sporting goods and music. My first job was managing for Herman Sporting Goods when I moved to Kansas City. Okay. Did that, and then had some other jobs in between, but in 95 I got my first chance to manage a music store, which was with a company. Store's names were Music for a Song.
Okay.
And opened a store at the Outlet Mall, which doesn't really exist in Odessa.
Oh, yeah.
And we opened that in 95. And I managed that up until January 1st of 2002. And the year that 2002, 2003, over 2,000 music stores in the United States closed thanks to Napster, the first music downloads, and that was sort of the real change in the music industry.
Radical.
Yeah.
Digital downloading, pirating. Ooh.
And the weird thing is now, out of all the, as bad as everyone hated Napster back then, they actually pay more than any other of the services. They pay a higher percentage to artists than anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of artist friends, and of course, they feel like iTunes and all that it's just nothing.
Yeah,
basically nothing.
It's
yeah,
it's what it is, but it's not a money maker.
No,
for smaller artists, or even some of the big artists don't make their money there.
Right. I think it's been traveling, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Like touring. That's where, like, the Deadhead crowd.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think they were the number one grossing band year after year after year after year after year after year because of all the merch and the ticket sales.
People just would follow them show to show.
Unbelievable.
To show. I was lucky enough to see him one time at Sandstone on 4th of July. My memory has it as being the hottest 4th of July that I have ever been around for, and show was in the afternoon. I swear it was over 100 degrees, and
wow.
it was an experience. I was a guy I worked with. His brother had just graduated high school, and he was following the Dead after his senior year of high school, and he couldn't believe I'd never seen the Dead. So he got his brother and myself. He got us tickets. We were on the 10th row. And it was an experience. I probably watched the crowd more than I actually did.
Right.
Dead.
I understand. So I was living in Virginia from 87 to 90. And they came to, so I lived in Hampton, Virginia, but I think they came to either Hampton or Newport News right in there in 88 or 89. I went. That was really fun. It's a fascinating crowd. I literally milled around the crowd and just rolled into people's spaces and just talked for hours on end. I mean, it was so fascinating.
The life what it took place in the parking lot before the concert.
Right. That's what I did.
It was its whole world.
Yeah, that's where I hung out like almost the whole time.
And I can't tell you what the song is. I apologize to any Deadheads out there, but they started, they were their own opening act, and they did about an hour set, and it was probably 4 songs, but in my memory it was maybe 3.
Yeah.
But they'd play a song, and the next thing I know, the song would be over, and they'd all be back at their amps, and they'd all be tuning, and then that would go on and on and on, and then they'd play another song, and then they'd be back at their amps tuning. After an hour, they leave the stage, take a break, they come back. They play an hour and a half or so. Never once did they go to their amps and tune. And I'm like, what was that all about in the warm-up? And they go, that's just what they do. And I'm like, okay, add 2 more songs or make it shorter. But nope, that's just what they do. And the other thing about that was in the second set, they break into a song, and then the first 2 or 3 notes, everyone in the crowd is like, they haven't played this since, and this was like 90 or 91, whenever it was. They haven't played this since 1983, and everyone in the crowd that was Deadhead knew what show was the last time they'd played this one song. And it was just crazy,
isn't it? Yeah,
it was.
Tying into the theme of spirituality adventures, like when I rolled through the parking lot and just had conversations, I had dozens and dozens of spiritual conversations, and it was so fascinating because it was all over the map, but fun. Yeah, just fun and open-hearted people, and it was really quite fun. I enjoyed
just an
it.
Amazing crowd, great people, kind hearts, just all ages. People that had been like families, like the gentleman or the young man that just graduated high school. It was his first summer following the Dead, but then you had people that had probably followed the Dead since at some point when the Dead first started. Yeah. So just an incredible mix of people, and everyone was just there to have a good time and enjoy the music. Yeah.
So I think, they were, easily the number one grossing band for year after year after year after year after year. I'm not sure who it is now, but especially after the pandemic and everything, it's got to be totally That screwed everything up, right?
Yeah, it's been tough for the big name artists, but also for the local artists that can't play in venues because nothing was open. They couldn't play.
Yep. Shut down. So I'm curious, like growing up in small town, what did you have any kind of faith background in this little town that you grew up in?
I grew up in a religious household.
Everybody know everybody's business. Everybody.
Yes. Trenton loved growing up there. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Would not move back there. People that I'm friends with in Trenton, love you. I love my town where I grew up, so proud of it. But very, very dominated by the ministry alliance, still is.
Christian Ministry Alliance, or is just mainly by the Baptist, two Baptist church, mainly by one Baptist, the main Baptist church in town, but the other. We were the last Hy-Vee, if I think I've got this right. We were the last Hy-Vee. At one time, we were the furthest south of any Hy-Vee was in Trenton. And I mean, this goes back to early 60s, but we were the furthest south out of Iowa. They're based out of Iowa. And, of course, they're here now in Kansas City area. But we were the last Hy-Vee to have alcohol. Oh, wow.
And there wasn't liquor stores. They were package shops. And you had to have not only your front door, but you had to have your back door. And in the town, the people that weren't religious would walk in the front door. If you were a churchgoer, you'd usually probably park maybe in the back and go in the back door. And if you were a minister, you would have it delivered to your house. These are the stories that I've got. There was a liquor store across the street from my parents' gas station, and from one of the owners of that's the story that I got.
That's funny.
I'm going to say that it's true because it makes for a good story.
Makes for a good one. It sounds true.
Never had alcohol in my parents' house. Very religious. Went to church, but at a fairly young age, after going every Sunday, my parents set me down, and my brother, who's 5 years older, and just said, "Our parents didn't force religion on us. We don't want to force it on you. It should be someday it should be your choice to pick what church you want to go to." And they gave us the option of going to church or not going to church. And as a young person, the idea of sleeping in on a Sunday sadly won out. So I believe in that I'm a spiritual person. Always have questions, always trying to figure things out. And I believe in Christian values. That I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't know what I believe in. That's the question I always ask myself, because if I pick being a Christian over being a Buddhist, how I have trouble justifying that I'm picking, or being a Muslim, why I'm lucky enough to pick the right religion. Mm-hmm. I think if you need to go to church on Sundays and that helps you, fine. But I have questions. I've known people that seem to be Christian on Sundays and didn't seem to be Christian the other 6 days of the week. Yeah. And that's always bothered me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, like my story here, I was a pastor, and then I ended up getting into some addiction issues that really, and it was a short period of time. I mean, compared to my whole life, I think we're the same age. So I was born in '61.
I was too.
What's your birthday?
June 15th.
Okay, I'm March 10th.
Okay, you got me by a little bit.
I'm older. Yes. All right. Anyway, but yeah, and I'd have been the same way if my parents would have given me an option to go to church. I wouldn't have gone. But then I ended up having an encounter that really changed my life, and I became a follower of Jesus, became a pastor, and really did try to, be a follower of Jesus but on the grace end of things, not on the legalism end of things. I don't know if you know, like, but I tried to not be rules based. I tried to be more grace based, relationship oriented, kind of a Jesus follower, I guess you'd call it. And so when I went through what I went through, my addiction issues, man, I was so full of shame and humiliated, and I felt like I'd been a hypocrite and let everybody down and all that kind of stuff. But the thing that a lot of people remembered was that I did speak a lot about grace and about forgiveness, and all of us need to find that in whatever way we need it. We have to, there's things that we all wrestle with, guilt and shame, and we have to find that place of forgiving ourselves, forgiving others. I'm a big believer in grace and forgiveness, regardless of what your faith tradition is, right?
And none of us are perfect.
Yeah.
And we all make mistakes.
Yeah. I found out I couldn't walk on water, I tried, but anyway. Yeah. So you college, you went back to Trenton, worked in there, came to Kansas City, got into the record industry, and then all of a sudden digital world hits. So catch us up from there. And when did you start? Let's kind of jump into FM music. When did that get started?
So from being music for a song, losing my job with them, being unemployed for a year, I knew that was my passion. That's what I enjoyed doing. Turned down some other jobs that probably would have paid more, but got a job running the music department for Barnes & Noble in Independence, the music and DVD department. Did that for about a 6-year period. It's where I met my wife.
Nice.
So it was a great time.
Yeah.
And then after that, ran a college bookstore at Cleveland Chiropractic College for another company. Did that for a while. My wife, she was into sort of the repurposing furniture, the painted furniture craze that hit back 2014, whatever it was. And we were doing some of that, and we got a booth down in the West Bottoms here in Kansas City, and we had some stuff in there, and every vendor had a crate of records, and she's like, you need to put in some of your records. You just have too many records. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. Can't sell my records. They're like my kids. And she goes, I don't have kids. She has kids. We have grandkids. She goes, they're not your kids. And I go, I can tell you where I bought each one. I can tell you probably what I paid for it. I can probably tell you when I bought it. She goes, just put something in. You don't listen to everything. So I put in a crate, sold some records. We put in 2 crates. I sold more records, 3 than 4. Our time was over, our 6-month thing. We didn't renew. It wasn't the best place to be. The lady that owned the place wasn't the kindest. And so we moved out. And about a month later, I had these 4 crates in the basement. They carried them in, set them down, and walked away from them. And one day I started going through them and started going to put stuff back in my collection. And there was a record that didn't belong to me. It was another vendor from the place, and I go, we got to return this. People walk around in places like that, and they have a record from one vendor and decide they didn't want it and just stick it wherever. And couldn't keep that record. It didn't belong to me. So we went down, returned it, and they go, there's a store a couple blocks down that's looking for new vendors for their second floor. And my wife and I were not dressed to meet people with the idea of having a career move opportunity going on. We could have looked homeless. As my memory has it, we were going to stop there and then go visit my uncle over on the Kansas side, and not like we were trying to impress anyone, but we walked down the street, we walk in this mid-century modern furniture store that just opened up called Goldie and Myrtle's. It's not there anymore. But my wife started talking, and they had no interest in what we'd done at the previous place. But all of a sudden, my wife, off the top of her head, just started talking about opening this vintage record shop that would have mid-century modern furniture, console stereos mixed in. It'd be sort of this lounge feel to it. And I'm standing there next to her and she's talking about it. And I'm thinking, wow, this sounds really cool. And I'm thinking also, she's not the kind of person that just pulls stuff off of her head, but where is this coming from? And some spiritual thing told her this is our opportunity. And she had always wanted us to own a record store. She knew that's where my passion was.
Yeah.
And lucky enough, the mother-daughter that owned the place felt the same way, that they wanted a record shop on their second floor. And we opened in, get my years right, we opened July of 2015.
Okay.
And we
was
were there.
It called FM Music?
It was called, our part was called FM Music from day one. My wife says I'm a little egotistical about my
Faron
Meek. But my concept is FM radio. What used to be album radio.
Right.
So in my head, it's a nice twist on both my name. And FM Music was, radio stations would, in the evening on FM radio, would put a new album on, play one side, and not take a commercial until the end of that side, and then put on the second side.
Plus your logo, you know, like I'm sure like if a 20-year-old walks into your store, he has no clue what that logo is, right?
Well,
maybe they do now.
It's a 45 adapter.
I know.
It's amazing. I've had some 20-year-olds come in that's got that as a tattoo.
Oh, wow.
And they'll show it to me like, I got to show you my tattoo. But
it's, the vinyl's made such a comeback, right?
It has. It's so everybody, it's amazing.
So more people, yeah, that's great.
Well, my original thing was, to me, that sort of says records, that adapter logo. And it's like, okay, there's got to be some technical name other than 45 adapter. Look it up. There is actually no other name other than 45
I wouldn't know
adapter.
what it. Yeah, I couldn't come up with one. And that's just,
to me, the stupidest name for a store, especially when I'm not really going to do 45s. So I did a little pencil drawing, and a gentleman that I know, a local musician who's a graphic artist, Jug Kite with his Killer Kite Productions. I sent him this bad drawing, and then I sent him the sob story. Don't have much money, and Judd sends me this fabulous logo, and our payment system between Judd and I is a bottle of a nice bourbon.
There you go.
Is whenever I need any graphic design work done.
There you go.
It's always worked that I pay him with some Woodford Reserve.
Woodford Reserve, yeah. Good
that's
stuff.
His favorite stuff. So that's, I don't know how he makes a living if everyone pays him in bourbon, but he's happy, I think.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. So 2015. 2015.
So we were there through 15, 16 into 17. Our lease was up. And they were raising our rent, and the mother-daughter, we'd sort of got the feeling that they were wanting to move on. And my wife and I lost our job in June of, both of us, the company we work for lost our jobs, run college bookstores in June of 16. So we'd sort of been unemployed. We called that our year of retirement, because that was a really fun year, not going to work every day. But you can't, it doesn't really pay very well. But we had this little space down there that had been a hobby. And we developed a friendship with a gentleman by the name of Steve Chase. He has a company in North Kansas City called Groove Washer. He makes what I believe is the best quality cleaning products on the market. It's what we sell in the shop. And he had invited us up to North Kansas City to see his operation. And Steve took us around North Kansas City and showed us every open space. And he goes, okay, you've seen every place. Have you got a couple in mind? And we're like, yeah. And he turns off of Swift and turns on to East 18th Avenue. And he pulls up in front of this building. And my wife's in the front of his SUV. I'm in the back seat. And he pulls up and he goes, this is where you're opening up your shop. And he points at the space. And there's two open spaces. And he goes, you're doing it here. You're doing it right here.
That's great.
He knew the rent. He knew the guy that owned it. He knew the realtor for it, and he square footage. He goes, this is where you need to open up. And I'm in the back seat, and Steve's not that much older than me, but I just go, thanks, Dad. And he goes, you're going to write the phone number that's on the sign in the window. You're going to call them today, and you're going to open up your shop.
And what year was this?
This was in 17. So this would have been May of 17.
Okay.
And we called, got the ball rolling, went back to pay my last month's rent at Goldie and Myrtle's, and tell them that we were going to step out on our own. And she actually asked if I'd signed anything. She told me I could take over running the business there. They'd keep the name Goldie and Myrtle. And I just told her, I don't want to run a furniture store. I want to run a record shop. And we want our name on the place. We want to be able to set the hours. And we know we wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Goldie and Myrtle's. And we appreciate so much the opportunity they gave us. They let us build to where we could step out on our own. So we opened up in North Kansas City mid-July of 2017.
Okay. This is like 18th
this is East 18th.
East 18th, yeah.
206 East 18th Avenue.
Okay.
We had a beautiful parking lot across the street, which we've lost, but in a year we're going to have an apartment building with 230 some apartments of people that I'm trying to get the apartment building to make it where they must, to be able to live there, you must own a turntable.
There you go.
They haven't went for that yet.
Yeah.
But those people can just come out and shop with us.
If you don't have one, come in FM first.
Come in, well, I can sell you one.
Yeah. So let's talk about your store, the vinyl revolution. What's your typical customer? What are they looking for? And I gotta confess, like, I'm late to the game when it comes to vinyl, because I literally got rid of most of my vinyl albums, which I regret tremendously, right? Because I grew up, when I first started listening to rock, it was prog rock. I was listening to Kansas, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Yes. I can go on down the list, but those were my favorite bands. Kansas was actually my favorite band.
Mine too.
I loved them and followed them I've even had contact with Kerry Livgren, and
I can understand that.
Yeah. And the spirituality of their stuff and how Kerry was searching for and he tried everything. And I loved that.
That was, a big part of their music.
Yeah.
And then it was also part of the conflict within the band.
Yeah, exactly. Joe Walsh.
Steve Walsh.
Steve Walsh, yeah, sorry.
From Joe. There is a Joe Walsh.
There's Joe. Yeah, sorry.
He's in the Eagles.
Steve Walsh. Steve. Steve's from St. Joe, right? And
yeah.
Kerry
had
Topeka.
the rest of the guys from Topeka.
Yeah.
My second concert, 1978. My first concert was also in 1978. When you live in a small town and, you're 17, your parents don't really let you wander to concerts. But second concert was, back then it was Royal Stadium, now Kauffman Stadium. The bill was this unheard of band called Van Halen opened. They got a whopping 35 minutes. Their first album had been out just a couple of weeks. The second artist on the bill was Eddie Money. So Van Halen was before Eddie Money. Just get your head around that.
Yeah.
Eddie Money's album had been out a little bit longer. And his backing band on his first album was Steve Miller's band. So Eddie Money played, band stayed there. He walks off stage, high fives, Steve Miller walks out. There was actually not even a break. Then Steve Miller played 2 hours. And after about start of the first song, Steve Miller goes, I know none of you are here to see me. You're all here to see Kansas. But they want it to be dark. They want to give you the best possible show that they can give you. And they were supposed to be recording their live album at that concert.
Kansas was?
Okay. Didn't happen, I guess, come out as a very good recording, because that's not what they use for their live album.
Yeah.
But Steve Miller played, then Kansas came out. The stage was just behind the second base dirt. And they had people down on the infield, but I can picture myself. We were just a few rows up on the third base line. Kansas, incredible light show. The ticket price was $15. So I got to see Kansas, Steve Miller, Eddie Money, Van Halen for $15.
Wow.
Oh my God.
That's crazy.
They used the fountains with the lights on.
Yeah.
They used what was the original scoreboard with their logo. I didn't do drugs. That wasn't my thing. My hair was past my shoulders, if you can imagine that with the way it looks now. But if I would have been using drugs, I imagine between the music and the lights that they had, it would have been even a more moving. But no, Kansas has always been one of my passions.
Yeah, that's sweet. Well, the first Kansas album I listened to, A Song for America, and then I went backwards and picked up the one with John Brown on the front.
Oh, the very first one,
Yeah, their first album, and then Song for America. Then I had Mask.
Yep.
And then Left Overtures came out, I think, after Mask. Is that right? With Carry On My Wayward Son was on that one.
It was sort of a make or break type point for him.
And so I didn't go to any of their concerts on the John Brown, Song for America, or Mask album, even though I love those albums. They're probably still some of my favorite albums, but I did go to their concert. They're here in Kansas City, and they opened with Carry On My Wayward Son. And this was my recreational drug days. So I was pretty stoned out of my brain, and they came out with this, it was all dark, and they did that little opening, dun 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 dun, pow, and then the lights just blew. I can still remember, like, I thought it just about rocketed me out of my chair when they hit that light,
So you were a little bit ahead of me in seeing them. Never missed after that point. I never missed a Kansas concert in Kansas City, and I mean through
even like maybe it was 10 years ago. They played down at. They did a reunion. They've done a few reunion tours here. I saw them down. I went with a buddy and saw them. I can't remember the name of that place that closed down, but I saw a bunch of concerts in a.
We had Woody's.
No, it wasn't Woody's. It was a different.
I've seen him. Let's see. I've seen him at Woody's. I've seen him at Memorial Hall. I've seen him at, of course, Kemper back in the day.
This was a smaller place downtown. It was. I even saw Evanescence at this place, and I saw.
I would have been there.
Golly,
not for the Evanescence, but
I forgot the name of the place. Anyway,
but yeah, I followed Kansas. That's one of my bands also. My best friend and I, we would always make the trip to see Kansas.
Yeah.
From the early days, and then Steve left, and we had John Elefante, another incredible vocalist for 2 albums, fabulous singer. Went through that. Steve did his group The Streets, saw that, then he came back into Kansas, and we had a period of that, and now he's gone from the band again, and seen him with the new singer, who at one time was the singer for Shooting Star, Kansas City band. So I agree with you with Yes. They're one of mine too. I've seen Yes numerous times. Never to see in the original version. I never saw Steve Howe with Yes, but I weirdly saw Steve Howe after he'd left Asia, but there was a small bar in the Northland called Dundee's on Berry Road for a short time.
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
Asia played there, and KY102, I think, had a 2-for-1 ticket thing, $15. Had no idea. It was before the internet was going on. We went to, my buddy Mark and I went to see Asia, and a few songs into the show, they go, "Oh, there's this guy backstage that wants to come out and play a song or two for you," and Steve Howe comes out, and we're just like, and there's like this little bar in Kansas City, and we're witnessing Steve Howe on stage, and we're just feet from him. It was, music moves me. Certain artists move me.
I saw ELP in Kansas City. I can't remember what year it was. It would have been, I don't know. Anyway,
Last time I saw him,
78.
I saw him at the Midland in probably in the 90s, one of the last times they played here.
This would have been.
I never did get to see them early on.
This was early, yeah.
I mean, brain salad surgery as a young teenager. Never heard anything like it.
Yeah.
Just was incredibly
fun
moving
stuff
as a young person.
So talk about the vinyl revolution. Give us what's going on there.
It's amazing.
Why is it happening?
Why not?
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
But here, so let me play this for you just real quick. So I had Adam Roberts here, who Screenland Armor.
Yes.
And we were talking about the difference between watching streaming at home and having the big experience in an actual theater. And then I've talked to people about books, like physical books, and the difference between reading digitally and physical books.
Do you like reading? Since
I'm a book guy, and
do you like digital at all?
So I have digital, like when I fly on an airplane or something. I don't have to take my backpack with me because I carry books almost everywhere. But other than that, I want to read a real book. I don't want to be able to highlight it. I want the depth. I want the experience. I want the.
My wife's the same way.
But even younger people, I'm finding out, are doing this as well. So there's definitely, I think there's a movement away from just everything digital back to actual physical. The album covers,
that was a problem with CDs. Small. I mean, when you'd buy an album, I did buy albums in the 60s. My first album was a Roger Miller album. I won't say that too loud. King of the Road, fabulous songwriter. But there was that thing about getting the album, setting down, putting it on, reading every little bit of information that was on either the cover itself or on the sleeve. Covers were artwork. Yeah. They were pieces of art. You put them up on your wall as a kid. There was something but moving. But somehow it's gone back to that. But there's also, albums always had a warmth. Something about the digital, by cutting off the low and the high ends, just got rid of some of that warmth that vinyl has. I don't think I'm just making this up. Yeah. I really believe that there is a warmth about vinyl. When I'm at work, and another thing I'll hate to admit, no one's listening or watching, right? There's I put on CDs in the store. I hate to say it, but after working in music stores for so long, I tune it out. I have stuff that I will focus sometimes, but I'll get busy doing stuff. And I've tried doing albums, and I just get to the point of like, okay, how long have I not had music playing? You should always have music playing in your store unless it's a Sunday and you got the Chiefs game on. But there's just, I do still listen to CDs. I sell CDs. I love CDs because it was part of my music past, but there is just something about albums. And the coolest thing is it's all ages. We are getting parents with their daughters or their sons, and it's fathers or mothers or both coming in shopping. We're getting grandparents, grandmothers, grandfathers. I've got one gentleman, grandfather, who started bringing him in when he was 14. He just turned 16, just got his driver's license, and he informed me, he goes, I'm turning 16, my car's got a CD player, and I'm going to start buying CDs from you, which is happy news to me because it's money and I sell CDs. But he'd always bought albums from me, but he informed me he was turning 16, he wanted to buy. But it's great to have families come in. They tell stories, they share stories. Some of them try to push certain types of music on their kids, and their kids could care less. But some of them, you see where their influences, they've been listening to their parents' music, and they actually enjoy it. And as compared to, I grew up in a house that was all about country music and fought that for years. I'm weirdly named after Faron Young, a country singer. And for years I tried to fight country music. I have an appreciation. We will always handle country music in my store because my dad was passionate about it, and that's where my music passion comes from. Yeah. A lot of stores don't waste time on putting country records in because they don't sell as much as others, other than your Johnny Cash or Willie Nelson, some of their traditional
My dad
ones.
was Johnny Cash, Statler Brothers, all
Statler
that.
Brothers.
Yeah.
Incredible, not only from the just 4-part harmony, but I mean, some of the best. best gospel music ever recorded was Statler
Yeah.
Brothers.
Do you remember Pulp Fiction?
Oh, yeah.
When Bruce Willis is driving and the Counting Flowers on the Wall comes on, and you're like going, I bet you his dad listened to, not Bruce Willis's dad, but Quentin Tarantino's dad.
That for years, my parents loved the Statler Brothers, so they tended to either play at the State Fair or in St. Joe, and that would be always would be one of the gifts would buy for either Father's Day or Mother's Day or a birthday for them. I'd always get them tickets so they could go see the Statler Brothers, because that was their passion, music wise. That was the best. According to them.
My dad's will be listening to this. He's 86, so he'll like the fact that we threw in Statler Brothers for sure.
Well, my parents have passed, but when the first record store the first music store I worked for, Music for a Song, stuff wasn't online like it is now. We had what was called the phonologue. It was this big monstrous book that took up more space than this table. You get sheets every week that you'd have to add in with information of stuff that came out. You couldn't just go on your phone or on the computer. And this was 95. And someone would come in, Odessa, country music was popular, would come in and ask me a question. I have country music knowledge, but if it was older country music, I'd just pick up the phone and I'd call. My dad would be outside working on lawnmowers behind our house in his little shop. My mom, eventually, instead of having to walk in, I bought him a cordless phone since I was making, and I got a call from our corporate going, there's a lot of phone calls, long distance phone calls to this number, and we know it's your parents. So I explained to one of the vice presidents of the company, the story was that I would ask, my dad would always have the answer for me about anything country music. And the gentleman told me, he goes, keep calling him. Doesn't matter. Keep calling him. If you got him involved and he's enjoying you calling him, we don't care if it's a few extra pennies on your phone bill.
Right.
So it was nice to have work for someone that was understanding. Yeah. But it was easier for me to call him than flip through this book. And also, it kept him involved. And I also got to say hi and check with him.
What albums move the quickest? Which ones do you have trouble keeping in stock? What is it, all over the map? Is it
a little bit? The first two Fleetwood Mac albums with Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham. First one that they remember of was just called Fleetwood Mac. Second one was Rumors.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Give me a bunch of those. I could sell one of those of each a day. Yeah. That's Stevie Nicks' first solo album, Belladonna. Some of the early when Steve Perry was early singer for, he wasn't the original singer, but when he joined Journey, that stuff. It's weird that period of time, vocalist. The first Boston album.
You know, is that the one with the spaceship?
Yeah, the guitar. It's an upside down guitar as a spaceship. If I could get Black Sabbath, I just don't see it.
Wow.
You got to take in who's selling the records, used records. People got rid of their records, but the people that's hung on to them are still hanging on. We get people that bring in their parents' albums or their grandparents' albums sell. I'm sorry, Liberace, Guy Lombardo, there's no market. But that classic rock, I mean, Zeppelin, left Overture, Point of No Return, Kansas, sell like crazy.
God, I wish I had those albums back. I got rid of all of them. I'm so upset. Anyway,
you know, we all went to CDs.
Yeah.
I mean, there was that period, well, I hate to say this, but there was the period where I was 8 tracks, then I was albums, and then I was cassettes, and then it was CDs. Way. And every once in a while, something was really good. I probably owned it on all of those.
Yeah.
But it just, it's there's certain things. I mean, number one selling album of all time is Eagles' Greatest Hits. It 3 or 4 years ago took over for Michael Jackson's Thriller.
There we got Joe Walsh, right?
Yes. Michael Jackson's Thriller still.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever you think, whatever you want to say. We won't go into any of that. But
my former wife was teaching in the Urban Corps in Fort Worth, Texas, when that album came out, and she had all African American students, and they all wore white gloves to school, and we had them over, and we'd do Thriller albums, and we had a blast with it. I love that album.
Can you moonwalk?
I can. There's actually Matt actually has video of me moonwalking. Yeah,
I can't.
I mean,
I've never tried because I know I can't.
Yeah, no, I actually tried to break dance even back then, so I really didn't. Yeah, I sucked at that. At any rate,
I'm the guy that listens and stays seated.
Yeah. Well, what in the pandemic you guys added a new component to your music store? Let's talk about that. Is that right?
Yeah, we did.
Did I get that right?
We did.
2020.
2020.
Did you added a speakeasy component? Is that right? Did I read this right?
You did. Well, to start out, there's a lot of little flying things that goes around to make this. When I went in front of the city in North Kansas City, told them what I was going to do before we opened. There was like 5 people sitting across from me, different parts of the city government. And at one point I just go, so what do I need to do to be able to give beer away? And they just looked at me. I go, I just want to get PBR away. If someone's coming in shop, if they're over 21, I want to be able to give it away. They looked at me, they go, no one's ever asked this. I go, there's got to be a salon that does wine. Not that I'm the kind of person that's going to go to a salon, but my wife, I know there's salons that do wine and beer. Mm-hmm. They just looked at me, no one's ever asked. Took them about 10 days to get back to me. And they go, you can't force someone to pay to come through your door. Well, that'd be the dream, to be able to force people to pay me to walk through my door. Mm-hmm. But you can't force them to buy something. You can't force them to leave you a tip for the beer. I go, I'm giving it away. So we have PBR. From day one, we had PBR.
Okay.
So that was that part of it. We closed a week earlier than the shutdown in Kansas City. I have a weird leukemia.
Yeah.
Called hairy cell leukemia.
When did you find that out?
I blank that part out. 13 or 14.
Okay. So you've been living with this a long.
And it's just my white blood cell count's low. My platelet count's low. When I shave, if I cut myself, it's going to bleed a bit, quite a bit. If I get a cold, it lasts twice as long as a normal cold. It's just, my first hematologist told me, her first words out of her mouth, besides what it was called, was, you have a few more good years. I didn't know then, and I don't know now what that meant. Oh, but gosh. I knew I needed a different hematologist. Got a different hematologist. But so I closed a week early. I had a gentleman come in, nice young man. He just got back on leave from the Army. And he goes, I had to go through, instead of just going to Germany and flying back, I had to go through 5 different places. Corona was not in Africa at the time, I knew that, but the countries that he told me where he had to pass through, I know it was. And I got home that night, and I just told my wife, I go, we're closing. I go, I have no idea who's walking through my door. And it was before we were doing masks. It was before we were doing a lot of hand sanitizing and the 6 feet. So I closed about a week early. When everything else shut down, there was that thing that I told my wife one day, we're done. Doors are locked. We're going to call it. And she isn't known to cuss, but at that point she's like, we've not done all this for us to lock the doors. Mm-hmm. She goes, you're coming up with something. And then it was like, okay, what can we do? A lot of people started selling gift cards. So one day I just threw out gift cards, and I did a bonus percentage. On top of, they wanted to spend $100, they got an extra 10%. If they spent $500, they got an extra. Did that. I had 12 customers that did over $2,000 one day. One day, though.
Nice.
No one did anything after that. It was all in one day. I had all these 12 great customers that, and that was enough money that would have paid my rent for a period of time. And then we dreamed up. I posted albums every day. People would pick PayPal, Venmo me. we did curbside, record store that did curbside. We first started out doing it on Saturday for about an hour. People would drive up. They'd already paid me. I'd hand them a bag with their records in it. It looked like a drug deal was probably going down in North Kansas City. And then it got to the point I was doing pretty good with that we did it during the week. Anyway, we did that. And then the next thing is, how do we reopen when they announced that Clay County, where we're located in North Kansas City, that May 4th was going to be the reopening date. And it's like, how can I control what goes on in my store for my safety? And the idea was speakeasy. We have alcohol. I give alcohol away. So it just sounds boring to say, let's do by appointment. So we stuck speakeasy on the name. My wife's an art history major. She had some ideas. She sent them to Judd. We promised him a bottle of bourbon. He came up with a new logo for us. It's just killer that sadly we probably won't really use that much. We still have a sign up in our front window, but we started doing where people would schedule an appointment and we'd only allow one customer or their family in. Started out with 30 minutes, but if you wanted an hour to shop, you could request an hour. And that's how we reopened our business.
Okay.
It was by speakeasy was a way to get around saying by appointment in my mind.
Yeah.
And you could come in and drink.
Yeah. Right.
And there's always something besides PBR hanging around the place.
Yeah. Nice. Well, so how are you you back open fully now?
We got to be fully open. People would come and, I'm got people in the shop and I'd have the door locked. I'd lock them in and so they'd force them to buy. But people would come and knock and wouldn't understand that I wouldn't just let them in. And I had people call me a few names and yell at me and scream at me that they couldn't just come in, that they'd shopped. But once we started out where we first allowed 4 or 5 in at a time. And that was late June of 2020, and then we just reopened when everything else sort of reopened a little bit more full. We still got the speakeasy sign up. It'll probably always be up since it's part of our fun history, and it was a way for us to get reopened. And
so let's talk about how people can get a hold of you. So 206
East 18th Avenue.
18th Avenue, North Kansas City. What are your hours?
Open Tuesday through Saturday, 11 to 5, and Sundays, 1 to 5. Closed on Mondays.
Okay.
We also offered, and we still do, if those hours don't work for you and you want private shopping, call me. I have no life. I'll open up in the evening for you. If you are I've got a gentleman that comes to town weirdly on Mondays, and I'm not normally open. He lives in Tulsa. He calls me on Saturday and he says he's going to be up on Monday. I ask him what time, and I'm open on Mondays for him. Yeah. So we try to make it as convenient for our customers as I don't like to work. That's why I own a record store.
How many vinyls copies do you think you have in the store?
Somewhere over, used, we're probably somewhere over 7,000.
Okay.
It's only 600 square feet.
Yeah.
So I've tried to pack in as much as we can, and you can still walk through, and the fire department won't close us down. We've got probably over 1,000 new.
Yeah. And most every artist now does a special release of vinyl, don't they? Pretty much.
Yes.
It's kind of become a thing, right?
And the colored vinyl, not just the normal black. Color vinyl is a big thing. There's been, back with Elvis, Moody Blue album. Actually, the blue version's more common than the black. You can go back to Grand Funk, Railroad, and American Band. There was a gold version of that.
I had that one.
That's the one that's worth money of that one. So color vinyl's been around, but the quality of the colored vinyl now is as good as the black. So a lot of bands will do special editions. You've got the companies that's got a lot of money. We haven't ever done this with a band, but your Targets and your Walmarts will do special releases of albums that are on different colors of vinyl. But it's fun. There's always, right now it's tough because of the pandemic, pressing of vinyl, getting time in a plant to press your vinyl. New Adele just came out. They've reserved all this time, thinking that sales are just going to be crazy, which they've been good. But bands have been planned on having their album out for December, or they're looking at next year, next summer because of it. So it's a weird time, but a fun time in vinyl.
Cool. Well, I want to tell people, for those who are on our Patreon, we did a bonus section, and we talked a little bit about Ireland. And you've been to Ireland twice. I've been once. We've been to the North Coast. We've both been to Bushmills, which is the oldest whiskey distillery in the world, right?
Yes.
And so you can listen to some of our conversation on our bonus content about a lot of fun stuff. Man, we could talk for hours about Ireland and prog rock, probably.
I think we could. And it'd be fun. I just want to throw out there, all the talk I've done about alcohol, I'm not really a drinker.
Yeah.
As weird as that might sound. I do enjoy Irish whiskey.
Yeah.
Not really a beer drinker. North Kansas City has some of the best brew pubs and some great locations to go to. And when you're there, come shop with me.
Yeah.
But
and what's your website? How do they find you online?
Ooh, website.
Facebook?
Facebook.
There you go.
I'm 60, so I still do Facebook.
Yeah.
I also probably have a MySpace. I'm not quite sure about that.
Yeah.
Facebook, FM Music Vintage Sounds.
On Facebook.
On Facebook.
Yeah.
I post stuff 2 to 3 nights a week. A lot of my regular customers, if there's something that they see that I posted the records I'll be adding the next day, will comment, can you hold that for me? That's part of my customer service, is holding stuff that I post, and that's why I drive my business, is with Facebook.
Yeah.
Can I tell a quick little story?
Sure. Go for it.
I got banned from Facebook for a month for posting child pornography. This is my most embarrassing moment. I got in some Zeppelin albums.
Oh no.
Oh Lord.
I already know where this is going.
Houses of the Holy.
Oh my God.
Great shape. I wanted to sell it. I posted it. And it was in May of whatever year.
Oh my
2018,
gosh.
I think. And my business, I drive it with Facebook. So they banned me from posting on my page for a month because I posted that album cover.
Oh my gosh.
And a lot of Led Zeppelin Facebook pages went down.
Wow.
Because it was all, they changed something in the computer system of how they rated stuff, that was child pornography.
What if you post Nirvana's album? Same thing?
Nothing. Or the Blind Faith album. Nothing. But you got these kids crawling on the rocks in Ireland. That was shot in Ireland.
Yeah.
They have on, I mean, that cover has been out forever.
It's iconic. It's like iconic.
But,
oh my gosh. Wow.
I am in the Facebook world. I posted child pornography.
That's crazy.
Because I posted a Zeppelin album.
Wow. Interesting.
I just remembered that was probably
That is something. Interesting. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
I just need to add that all of my Led Zeppelin albums have come from FM Music. I bought all of them there.
Oh, sweet.
Thank you.
Sweet. God, I love Zeppelin. I loved I've still followed Robert Plant. I think he's such a great
We
musician.
just released a new one with Alison Krauss.
That's I love him and
second
Alison
time.
Krauss. They are. I just eat that up.
Such
love
a
that
different ballpark for him to go into with T-Bone Burnett producing and working with him. I mean, the other one won all kinds of Grammys. They played at Starlight, one of the best shows I've ever been to. And the new album's really good. And they they said they never planned it when they would do the second album. It would just come to them. And it finally did. And it's another great album and 2 great, incredible talents. And Alison Krauss, one of the great vocalists, great musician. You don't have to be into bluegrass to be into her music.
She's fabulous. She's fab. She does classic hymns too.
Yeah.
You know, she's amazing. I saw her at the National Prayer Breakfast one time. Just knocked it out the park.
Of course, I've seen her a couple times in Topeka.
Okay.
And we have the group from Topeka that likes to protest everything.
Oh, of course. Yeah. He protested my church one time.
Really?
Yeah,
Congratulations.
I felt honored.
I am impressed.
Any rate. Yeah. All right, man. Well, thanks for joining us at Spirituality Adventures. Everybody get down to North Kansas City, FM Music, and do some vinyl shopping. And if you haven't got your vinyl player out and it's still in a box, do that.
Or if you need one,
Or if
I
you
can
need
help
one,
you out.
he can help you out. What kind of record players are you selling?
We have the little suitcase type
Sort of
for the
box
person.
type, yeah.
The new ones. But I've got a couple gentlemen that work on stuff that refurbishes. So I have a lot of vintage stuff in the shop. So some Pioneers,
Maybe I
some
need to get
Sansui,
mine. I need to get mine.
Techniques.
Yeah,
I've got classic Pioneer.
I got Pioneer and Techniques in a box right over here.
Need to get it out.
I know. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Thanks everybody for joining us at Spirituality Adventures, and we'll see you next time. This concludes today's episode. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Remember, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Remember to like, share, or subscribe to the social media platform that you're using. And then go to our website, spiritualityadventures.com, and make a one-time donation, or you can subscribe monthly and receive our special bonus content. Thanks so much.